But to you, Aja, what does that really mean? Because I sense that from what you just responded with.
In a way, something I've been contemplating, this is kind of hard to articulate, but it is more of a non-dual perspective that, you know, everything that happens in our life, in a sense, is it's like predetermined in some way. And in some way, it's already happened. If you don't see time as linear, it's just this is kind of like where we are, where our perspective is. And it feels like this is what we're, experiencing on that timeline. It couldn't have happened any other way because of everything else that's ever happened. We're always going to make that choice, the same choice, or like a predetermined choice in a sense. And so knowing that it couldn't be any other way, it's really allowed me to release any regret or like that that irritation or like frustration that can come from like, oh, it should have been this way, or if I would have chose that, then this wouldn't have happened. It just kind of takes that perspective out completely as even an option. And for me, it really allows me to just soften into the ride of like, oh, it is what it is. I'm just along for the ride, really. Sometimes healing just takes as long as it takes. And we just got to ride it through.
So while you were riding through this train of life that we're just the passengers of, because I believe in free will through my Christian faith, at the same time, I do believe that time is non-linear and there's no point of what if syndrome, because in a sense, everything already had happened and your decision is a culmination of all the decisions you made up to that point. So I agree with what you're saying. But tie that into your 20 plus years of healing process through your intense daily onset migraines. How did you not give up hope throughout this process? Because sounds like it was really, really arduous, very painful, very difficult, which eventually catalyzed this insight to decide no more endless seeking for the sake of.
Yeah, I mean, it's so much easier looking back, like, oh, it happened for me. I know how hard it can be when you're in it. I think that's where like that nightmare of being trapped, like I literally felt like I was trapped in almost like like a virtual reality nightmare and like being trapped in this body of pain. I'm always just amazed at the resilience of humans and just, it's like no matter how hard it is, like I don't believe that we're ever given anything that we can't handle. And so also seeing things like that in a way as an initiation. And, for me looking back, it definitely feels like an initiation. I feel like everything that I offer in terms of healing and being able to relate to people comes from my experience with that. And I think there was just always a part of me that like wouldn't give up, and just that I always knew that I would make it through it. Even when I was little, I always had this, I would always say like, I'm going to figure this out. And once I do, I'm going to share it with everyone. And so, yeah, I mean, I think if we're meant to be alive, like we're going to have that motivation and that drive and that, like, even if it's a tiny spark of inspiration. Unfortunately, I think when we do completely lose hope, like we probably won't stay alive for that much longer. So yeah, I mean, maybe that's kind of like a radical statement, but I do believe that if we're meant to be alive, like we'll make it through. We'll have that hope.
It's like the idea that we are, of course, like the culminations of all the experiences we lived before us. So the fact that we're alive now means we've endured tremendous pain and sufferings and obstacles and challenges. Of course, the past does not always predict the future, but I think that's the reason why I have a mixed feeling with this rise of trauma talk in mental health. And I think people get too caught up in just talking only about feelings and trauma. And I still subscribe to the point that to achieve post-traumatic growth, you have to move through and face the trauma. Of course, everyone has their different timeline, and that looks different for everyone. I'm not saying invite needless suffering for the sake of, but when you're in light of a really, really difficult challenges that you view as traumatic, sit with it, confront it, flirt with it. What is it telling you? And don't run away from it. And just do it incrementally. I think that's how we achieve this. But I share that because if you're alive, as you said, you've gone through some shit in life. And that gives you this confidence that I don't know 100% for sure I will live through the next obstacle, but I know damn sure that I've gone through many before this. And I think that creates this self-confidence, which I think is what you're talking about. Thank you for discovering more with us this week. If you enjoyed watching this video, check out the full-length episode at one of the windows that pops up. And as always, see you again in next week's train of Discover More. Thank you for tuning in.